You're listening to Lender Lounge with Kevin Kim, a podcast dedicated to the private lending industry. I'm Kevin Kim, and my goal is to sit down with key figures in the private lending industry to talk about their business and their personal lives. We'll get their takes on market conditions, the industry at large, and their personal stories. Overall, I really want to learn more about how they started and grew their businesses. So whether you're a lender, a borrower, a vendor, an investor, or anyone just interested in learning more about private lending, this podcast is definitely for you. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy this week's episode of Lender Lounge with Kevin Kim. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Lender Lounge with Kevin Kim. Today we are lucky enough to have the CEO of Civic and our friend Whit from Civic, head of Correspondent Lending. And you guys drove all the way down from Redondo Beach. We did. Thank you very much for coming down to our offices here in Irvine.
Thank you. Beautiful.
And really appreciate you guys joining us on the show. So before we get into it, briefly introduce yourselves to the audience for those who don't know you guys already, and we'll get into it. Yeah.
Whit? Yeah. Whit McCarthy, Senior Vice President of the Correspondent Lending Division at Civic. Was fortunate enough to be one of the original few at the organization, so I've been able to see it from where we started to where it is today. So very, very fortunate to be in that position to be able to see it all the way through the last 7 years.
Mm-hmm. Seven this month, right?
7 this month.
7-year anniversary.
It is.
Introduce yourself.
Bill Tessar, President and CEO of Civic. Been in the lending space about little over 35 years. Been with Civic going on 5. Civic's in a really, really interesting point since its inception today. And we're excited about really our capital base and what tomorrow looks like. So glad to be here.
And Civic is just for our audience who aren't, deeply entrenched in the private lending space. Civic is a retail and wholesale private lender, correct?
Correspondent as well.
Yep. Correspondent as well.
Yep.
And you guys have been you guys only do private lending. We're not talking about anything else, right?
Yeah, I think that's important, right? When I made my transition over from the convention, I was 30 years on the conventional side. I think everyone believed I was going to come over here and do the BPL stuff and then bring some conventional. Sure. That was never the intent. Okay. Like after 3 decades, it was good for me to make a transition.
And that space has kind of got it's kind of in its own groove. It's pretty much set in stone now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think. I think there's a couple tech plays from the big and the mighty, like the Loan Depots of the world, and they're still moving that ball forward. I think for the masses, it's at the tail end of that life cycle, meaning there's a lot of autopilot that goes on most of the transactions that take place there. The government is your partner. Margins are paper thin. Competition highest it's ever been. And so I think the way that I thought about it is the opportunities in this space, it's really more in the embryonic stage.
Right.
And it's just
especially
wide open.
When you joined 5 years ago. I mean,
very much so.
Yeah. So let's go over the core products for Civic just to make sure our audience is aware, because we have some listeners who are new to the space, who aren't even in the space. They're builders, they're just enthusiasts, they're investors. So give us kind of the 30,000 intro of Civic's core product line and what you guys do, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So our bread and butter historically has been the bridge product, right? 1 and 2 year loans, interest-only programs, right? Single family, 1 to 4, condos, townhomes, and whatnot, but residential in nature. That's been our sweet spot, the fix and flip, value add rehab. So, up to 80% LTV acquisition, 100% rehab, 75 ARV, kind of the standard fix and flip product. We just think we do a very good job at that with compared to others in the space. And so that's what we've done historically since day one. We rolled out a rental product about 2.5 years ago now that is becoming, I think by this last month, it actually surpassed 50% of our total originations by units, which is the first time that's happened. But it's been a very, very strong product. 30-year programs, 5-1, 7-1, or 10-1 ARMs, really just stabilized DSCR rental products.
You're hyper-focused then, because a lot of your competitors, even on the correspondent side, will do like what I would consider commercial real estate. They'll have big multifamily, they'll do mixed use, they'll do other things. They will only do, or some others will say, we'll do all types of residential.
Sure.
You name it, right?
Yeah, so we also do have a multifamily lending division as well.
Up to 100 doors, up to
I think it's technically 150 today.
That's still pretty small comparative. Like a lot of these guys are targeting the big mixed use projects still, and it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and so we're definitely value add bridge on that. It's up to 80 LTC, and I think low cost and strong programs for any value-add investor for multifamily product. Right. And then, what I've focused on and specialized in is working with other lenders as a capital provider. Right. Being able to give them capital.
Program. Right. And that's evolved over the years, over the past 7 years now. You guys are offering all types of programs for people. Originators can work with you directly. You can fund their deals. I think you can buy their deals too if they wanted to.
We're not buying closed loans today, but that's in the product development roadmap for Correspondent in the future.
And all within, 7 years. And I want to know also like size, because I know the numbers. I mean, but I want you guys to say, because it's important that you guys say, you guys, when you guys first started back 7 years ago, I think, you were a new market entry, and 7 years later now, we're talking in the billions now. Mm-hmm. I mean, is this per year? I mean, I saw an ad recently, or a Facebook or a LinkedIn post, 2 billion in origination. Is that total now? Or
no. We passed 5. We'll pass 6 this year.
Wait. 5 billion over 7 years. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Actually, it took us. What did we say? The first 5 years, first 4 years to do the first billion, and then we did 4 billion in the next 3. I think we'll pass 6 billion this year. 1.7 for the year.
So Bill brought the horsepower there.
Well, yeah,
you can say that.
Yeah, a little bit of that. But then listen, like I think what gets lost, and I'm glad that Whit brings it up, what they did in the beginning to get Civic started, they didn't know a whole lot about lending when they started. It was really off the backs of Wedgwood being the largest fix and flipper in the space, and Jim Helfrich and Gary McCarthy running HMC Assets, that they said, hey, we're in the middle of all these transactions, we should do loans. Right. They started on the conventional side. They realized that's a very tough gig. Our company, Skyline, bought them. And then they pivoted and started Civic on the private money. And it was really Whit and Jack and a handful of others.
I remember.
That deal one. Like, hey, we funded a loan. We funded our first $1 million, funded our 5. And really, I got to watch kind of closely, but afar, watch what they did.
Were you involved in the company?
I was involved not in that company, only with Wedgwood, because Wedgwood, when we bought their mortgage company, they invested in Skyline. So I'd have to report back, and Gary McCarthy, one of the founders, which is also Whit's father, and I would meet every quarter to discuss how Skyline was doing.
That's awesome.
Originally,
really cool, actually.
Yeah.
Bunch of different silos within the greater Wedgwood organization.
But still, it's very rare to see. You don't see a lot of family, like father and son. You don't see a lot of like generational involvement in the industry. It's one thing you think you see more of, but we don't see a lot.
I think it's hard. I mean, can you have generations when this, I think, industry is still so in its infancy?
Kind of. I mean, it's starting to now, right? Like there are folks that, at least we just got back from CMA, right? And there's some folks who've been doing this for 20, 30 years when it was a different industry. You know? And so like their
pre-institutional.
Their sons are kind of involved, but not really. So we rarely see it. I think I can name companies where like father and son are in the space on my hands. Yeah. So it's very cool to hear.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we didn't work directly with each other, being that he oversaw NPL division. We had the fix and flip division underneath the Wedgwood banner, and then Civic on its own.
Yeah, I think what Gary did a great job with is provide a lot of capital markets infrastructure oversight, and so that put them in the game to allow to start expanding their wings a bit. And so when we came in 17, they had a nice run up, and then like most smaller companies, they had some capital constraints, and so they had to solve some capital problems. I came in, I think, in March of 17. That month, they had done like 22 million. I think they had 40 employees, but they had good 40. Like the 40 was solid, and so I think what we did when we came over, we just when I say we, I brought Merced Cohen, head of operations, with me. We just watched for like 90 days and stayed out of people's way. Just made sure that we understood.
When you were brought on, you were CEO, you were appointed CEO at the time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so you don't really want to get in there and bring a bunch of ideas when you don't understand what is and isn't working. And I think what I found in those 90 days, there was a lot working, and we had a lot of good people, and they had a good baseline to build on. And then we started bringing people, we started bringing tech, we started bringing infrastructure, social media push, reputation management, digital platform, the whole thing. And it's really one person and one step at a time. We enhanced pricing, we expanded our comp matrix and started bringing a little products, and then really conquering and dividing. So Whit, which might have had 11 hats, now got to focus on 2 or 3 because we were bringing bench strength in. And so I think in 17, we did So we came, it was 20 million. In that 17, we did about 600 million. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of these.
20 million a month to
to 600 million for the year. And then 18, we did like 900 million. And 19, we did $1.2 billion. And you go into COVID and the world falls apart.
Right.
And what was interesting for me was I didn't really know the economics of a lot of the competition. You just look at the marketing and you
you don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
You never know that, right?
Right.
But I think what was really eye-opening for me was how many people stopped lending altogether or just paused. Like it was 75 to 80% of our space.
Yeah. I remember the day.
Well, I remember it too. And so like what we did was like we were very well capitalized, had a whole bunch of cash. Wedgwood put a bunch of cash into Civic. So we didn't have any line problems. And we didn't have any funding problems.
So this is all balance sheet capital.
Yeah, well, a portion of it, and we had a very big warehouse lines as well. And Credit Suisse, which was one of our biggies, didn't have margin calls with us. I mean, we were very well capitalized with them as well. The problem was you had no buyers of the loan. Yeah. So if you're originating new paper at a price point or a leverage point that there are no buyers, you're basically bankrupting a company. So we probably spent 2 straight weeks around the table trying to figure out where you had to adjust leverage, WACC, points, parameters, and
it was a daily thing. I remember the numbers were changing every day. Like they'll buy at what they used to buy, but they want a discount. Or if you want to sell to them, they want the yield to be up by 2 points.
I mean, we had pretty static rate sheets prior to COVID. I think we had maybe one adjustment a year, maybe 2 if we were feeling a little saucy.
But when that happened, I mean,
we were adjusting every other day. It felt like.
I'll tell you what's crazy. So my relationship with Credit Suisse goes all the way to the top.
Right.
And so I'm having a conversation with them, and I'm saying they're saying, Bill, so what was 103 or 104 on a bid for a piece of paper was now 92, 93. And he goes, and at 92, I'm not a buyer.
No.
I go, well, hold on a second. Same FICO, we're not a buyer at 90. So where, he goes, if I were
And they were at 92 for you guys. A lot of my clients who were on a smaller level, it was 86.
That's right.
Same numbers.
That's right.
It was crazy.
And so, but I wasn't going to sell at 92,
Absolutely
and we didn't
not.
need to sign. So really what we did, which leads into the acquisition, was another bank that bought a lot of paper from us was Pacific Western Bank. They'd bought in over $750 million. And that relationship with their CEO and Wedgwood's CEO goes back 25 years.
Yeah.
And they also fund.
So there's a history there.
They fund hundreds of millions of dollars with Wedgwood. And so
I didn't know you guys were selling to I didn't know they were buying loans. I didn't know retail banks were buying loans from
Well, they're if you go look at PWB, they're a very different looking regional bank. They make a little bit more WACC, and their stuff has a little bit more risk on it. So they've been in this space with us for 3 years. This was nothing new. Now, what they did, we didn't sell a lot to them recently because you had the Credit Suisses and the Morgans and the Nomuras coming in, and they were paying
103, 104.
Yeah, and whereas maybe they weren't.
Right.
And so we had transitioned our paper to there over the last year, but they stepped right up. We lent uninterrupted from March of 19, March of 20, right when it started, all the way through. Now, we didn't lend as much. Right. We were like 60, 70 million a month instead of 100 million a month. But
I remember I got your guys' updated matrix in like the mid-Aprils, but you were the only ones that had it.
And it was, I don't know, help me, 9 3/4 to 10 1/2 and 2 points and low leverage.
At that. I mean, in California, we were seeing 9+, 2 points.
So we did that, and then what happened is they got to look. I mean, they got to look at what we were doing as a company.
Too.
Of course, right? And they'd already had access to all our financials and performance. And so talks began to fast track because they have a ton of cash and they want to put the cash to work, and no better way to put the cash to work than to deploy it through our machine.
Like
and
any other bank, they're suffering on originations. They can't get the deals done on their ends.
And truth be told, without getting into names, we were already way down the road in a potential acquisition with another company, a Wall Street firm, way down the road. And the brakes came on because we got to watch how that Wall Street firm reacted to such a thing, which was eye-opening to us, a huge firm. And so what this company did is they came in and they paid a premium. They paid all cash, and they closed in what was about 6 months.
Because this happened during COVID. Like it was announced during COVID, and we were all like scratching our heads. Like there were speculators saying like, "Oh, is it a distress play?" Is it them? Like I'm talking to a client of mine saying, I don't think it's a distressed play because they're active. They're not, like, of the national shops that are retail and correspondent, and like what you guys do, your competitors, they're active, though they're not. So there's no reason why it would be a distressed acquisition.
It was a significantly greater premium paid than what was on the table, and it was all cash.
And you guys kept control.
With no earn-out.
You're still in your seat. There's nothing seems to change that much.
Well, and I think that's the big misnomer. Like some of the things I've heard at conferences, they're owned by a bank, they're bankified. Now you're going to go to getting a bank loan. That's a crock of shit. Right. Like we aren't bankified. We're owned by a bank, but we're really powered by a bank. So my cost of capital has gone from 5 or 5.5 or whatever the securitizations now are 3.5 to 0.25. Right. The Fed window.
Fed window, yeah.
So it's a big difference, right? And so the first thing we did, well, let me back up for a second. So that deal closed February 1, 2021. It was 6 months of hardcore diligence. They already had the financial diligence, and they already had $750 million of performing paper from us. So they already knew what we were doing. It's really getting in all the lawyers to make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and that you do fully understand what it is that you're bringing under your banner. So once we got through that, we are set up as a wholly owned subsidiary, powered by the bank. I report to the board. Our HR and their head of HR have a dotted line. Our head of IT security, dotted line. Everything else is the same. We kept every single employee. Didn't take any of the bank employees. And we've, since February, added 50 people to our organization?
50 new people, and I'd say they have eliminated a lot of potential red tape that we had in rolling out new states and programs. I think we've strapped a jetpack onto this thing. And I think we've rolled out more states in the last 6 months than we have, or since the acquisition, than we ever have as an organization.
It's kind of confusing from a market watcher like myself, because I used to work at a bank, right? I used to work at, we used to compete on loans with PacWestern. I work for what is now Bank of Hope. And I remember competing with them and them being a very relatively aggressive commercial lender. They did a lot of commercial, they did a lot of loans that we did at the bank. And then I go to law school, I joined the space, and I hear that they're buying you guys. And I was just kind of like, this is not a normal play. You never hear this happen.
That's right.
You've heard of Goldman buying, when Genesis was sold. You heard about MFA. You heard about Redwood. These are all Wall Street companies. This is probably the first time a regional, what I call retail bank, an actual retail depository bank, in buying outright for a premium too, a private lender. And you guys kind of set the mark. But what I am so fascinated about is nothing's changed. Like, you guys still with Jetpack, right? But culturally, you guys are still the same way, it seems.
As a matter of fact, marketing-wise, they've picked up a lot of things from us, and they'll tell you, banks have a different makeup. You know that, being from one. It's maybe more older school, more stodgy, more regimented.
Hierarchies, my God.
And like with us, it's exactly the opposite. And so one of the things I've appreciated about PacWest is they haven't gotten in their own way. If there is a best practice, they use the same swipe and adopt method that we built Civic on, and there's no pride of authorship. I don't need you to tell me that was my idea. If it works, let's do it, right? And we've seen that with them. What I would tell you is this: I went in with 8 eyes wide open. I've been in lending too long to know that it on paper it looked too good to be true. And the CEO and the gentleman who I work with over there, the EVP of strategy, said all the right things, but when the tires hit the road, what's going to happen?
This isn't a normal transaction.
It isn't, but I'm telling you, as I sit here, I've had 0 surprise days. There's been some things, so maybe inside of compliance, we have to train our people with certain lessons learned under a bank that we wouldn't normally train.
Right.
But as far as lending is concerned, nothing's changed. And when you talk about exceptions, there's not a lot of companies that'll lend SFR to 10 million. We just closed a deal for 15 million in Bel Air, and the credit committee is me, the head of our operations, and 4 people from there. And you present the deal the way that you would present it to me, and there might be a couple questions, and it's approve. We haven't had one deal that we've presented that has been kicked back because the bank's not comfortable.
But that probably also is a credit to the previous relationship you built over the years.
I think that's fair,
They understand the credit. They're comfortable with the credit box. They're comfortable with your risk now.
At the end of the day, I think where we stand with them right now, it doesn't feel like they're bankers. They feel like they're business people, right?
That's
That are in the business
fascinating
to
part.
do common sense type of lending.
It really is.
Yeah.
It raised a lot of eyebrows and questions in the space because, like you said, is it now a bank? Are you now a bank? But like, I was like, okay, they're probably going to prove everyone wrong over the next few months, and you guys have, right? You know, since it's been announced, you guys have been on fire and growing, and now this, even in 2021, now what's the numbers for the year so far? We're only in August.
So check this out. We closed in February.
Yeah.
We go 4 straight months over 140 million, and then 2 months over 155 million. And remember, buying no loans,
Right.
not doing any non-QM,
Right.
no conventional. This is straight BPL.
Right.
So like I've seen a lot of crazy numbers from some of the competitors, and I applaud them. But when you start aggregating, oh yeah, we bought 50 million,
Right.
or it is different. We are belly to belly with our customers,
Right.
transacting and adding. And when you do, it's like we're going to cross $1.7 billion this year. $1.7 billion. And let me tell you something. We have 5 other products we haven't rolled out yet that will dominate parts of the marketplace, and we only haven't rolled them out because we don't want to break operations. And I have 240 people in operations, and I'll break it when we roll some of these other products out. So we are desperately hiring, desperately trying to improve efficiencies through tech, desperately trying to improve efficiencies through appraisal, which we just rolled out an eval product, which is unbelievable. So like, I'm not worried about the volume. The volume's there, and if anyone wants to get into the pricing game thing, you know, there's a lot of meat on the bone. I'd prefer not to, because that's what makes a company's engine run, but we can.
Right.
And so if guys want to, you know, roll around in the mud and get skinny, we can do that.
But that's a nice plug. We are hiring.
Yeah.
Anyone listening?
In all
departments.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy part. It's like the level of activity you guys have put. I know you guys have been on a hiring tear, and this is a good transition on the hiring part. And I want to talk about the companies. We talk about the growth from a capital standpoint and the horsepower that's been brought by the bank and by Bill. But the question now becomes, you guys are massive now. I mean, like we're talking about from, you said, was it 10 employees back when they founded?
I think 40 when I came.
40 when you came on board. It started with 4 of us in the conference room,
Yep.
Right.
and we're able to scale.
And now how many employees?
Just under 370.
300 plus, almost 400 in a matter of 7 years. And granted, you guys had, you know, institutional partners, but a lot of our clients now do. But 400 employees, right? And they're not all here in California. They're everywhere, right? I'm friends with some of you guys as originators. I know some of them in Miami. I know some of them in Texas. You guys are across the nation now from an employee standpoint. And headquarters are in Redondo Beach.
There.
But, I mean, managing a company of that size in a space that is hyper, what I would call aggressive when it comes to hiring, right? People transition spaces all the time.
Sure.
We see guys lateral all the time in this space, right? How have you guys built it? What have you guys used, you know, from a cultural standpoint, from a retention standpoint, from a training standpoint to build? Because it is very hard to manage that many employees in today's day and age, right? We see companies with the same numbers, but they have a very, very lean team, and they are refusing to scale the headcount, right? For fear of culture, for fear of losing whatever value they establish with their employees, and frankly also out of fear of lateraling, right? Because an overhead, right? And it's a fear from their perspective. Talk about that real quick, because I know you guys are very big on culture. And I've spoken with some of your employees, and they all tell them like how awesome it is to work for you guys. I saw that thing you guys did. You guys gave away a car, and I saw a
Tesla.
It was a Tesla. Like you guys had this big party, like where everyone converged, the entire country, all your employees, all the country converged.
Yeah, it was our big sales event, right, in February of
Not just sales, our
sales and ops. Yeah. It was our whole company event.
And then you guys give away a car. I mean,
well, we didn't give away a car at that event. What we did is we had a whole karma, a gamification where when people do good things for the community and for one another, and hit certain milestones, they would earn points, and the top 10 point getters at the end, we would have a drawing for a bunch of things.
It's tied to incentivization.
Well, we just want people to treat others well.
Right.
And you know, I learned a long time ago, if I asked everyone in this room, we're going to start wearing pink shirts, right? And people are like, I don't want to wear a pink shirt. I'm not wearing a pink shirt. I hate pink. Doesn't make my eyes look good. No, I don't look good in pink. Oh, maybe I'll wear pink. If I said I'll give you $500 every day to wear pink, everyone would wear pink every single day. Right. So it's finding that kind of what is the motivator to get people to do good things in the company's name. And so this was it. And we actually just gave the car away a couple months ago, right? It was super exciting. So 10 finalists. We did a kind of reverse ball in like the NBA type of drawing thing, 9876. And the gal who won it was unbelievable. So well, actually, all 10 of them really deserved it. It's, what I realized after we gave the car away was I wish we had thought this thing through a little bit better and everyone could have won something comparable. Right. Because to win a $500 gift certificate and watch someone drive out in a $50,000 Tesla, you don't feel like a winner. Right. And I just, that kind of bugged me a little bit, but yeah, we did.
I mean, but this is a reward though for you guys have some kind of like what I would call recognition program for your employees, right? And this is we do this here with our employees with badges, and we give smaller incentives. We can't give away a car, but like the idea of rewarding and appreciating your employees goes to a lot about culture. We spend a lot of time on this show talking about culture of a company because I feel like the companies that have been successful in general, right, have amazing cultures. Right? They have good retention. Their employees want to come to work, and they respect the CEO and they respect the board, and they know that they're rolling in the same direction. Yep. How have you guys built it? You guys been around 7 years now. Yeah. It's not a short time.
Well, I can tell you, I think it's a culture by design, right?
Okay.
This didn't just happen. Yes, I think early days when we were a startup, right? And we still try to retain a startup culture, but when we were a startup, we never lost that feeling of looking after each other. And I know when I walk into the office every morning, I have every single person's back and they have mine. I think we've been able to retain that culture, and I think we live by our core values that we have each and every day.
As a common thread on this show is every company we talk about culture that has taken this seriously has their core value. We have core values here at the law firm. Can you tell us about your core values?
Yeah, I mean, we have them posted on our coin. So every single one of
cool,
our...
This is cool. Okay, so I've seen all types of means of demonstrating values or appreciating employees. This is the first time I've seen... This is a military thing, right? I think they're called challenge coins?
They are. Yep, goes back...
You want to give the background?
Yeah, so going all the way back, it goes back a number of wars where they had these coins really for an identifier of one another. And then it kind of built into something bigger. My brother's Special Forces had a number of coins as he served our country those 20 years. And so I was brought into that a long time ago, really late 80s, early 90s. And as we went through in establishing our core values, and it was a 16-month process, and it was in closed doors with professionals from the outside that help us work through the way that we thought about our business and one another. And I will tell you, there were moments in there that we would walk out and there would be ill feelings towards one another because he might be passionate about one thing and I might not think that translates, or vice versa. And we had the amount of time, energy, and resources we put in to come up with our top 5 core values that we believed was going to drive this company through whatever it faced. And in this particular case, it was COVID. Yeah. Which you really do need your core values in a time like that. We went through. And so we ended up with 5. It was act with honor, be a great partner, communicate clearly, create smiles, and simplify. So those are our 5. And what I will tell you is each day in every way, when you have a challenge and it's before you, and you really are not sure about turning left or right, and there's plenty of those. Right. If you let your coin or our core values guide you, you'll always find the right answers. If you act with honor, you could never really make a knucklehead decision. Right. It might not have been the best decision, but you didn't trample over somebody's grave to make it. And I think it's helped us a lot. It really helped us a lot when we had to think about people working from home. Because quite frankly,
we lost a lot of cultural appreciation and value when we went remote. It was hard. It's so hard to continuously instill those values when you're on a Zoom call. It's just so hard. I mean, how do you guys do it?
Well, what I would tell, I like what Whit said about by design. We have 14 full-time people that work in people and culture. And their sole responsibility.
Wait, these are HR people? Or these are just culture?
People and culture. And their sole responsibility is the health and well-being of our people. Wow. We do keep, stop, starts every quarter. Mm-hmm. So everyone in our company gets to tell us what we should keep doing, what we should stop doing, and what we should start doing.
Is that anonymous?
Absolutely. Yeah,
it can be, or it doesn't have to be. Either way. Ultimately, that and a lot of other things that we've done and processes we've gone through come from the teachings of John D. Rockefeller. Right.
So
scaling up.
I watched the interview of you, Bill, and you had the scaling up book on your desk. I'm guessing we've studied it. We did the MAP program. We did the Gazelles program.
Gazelles, yep.
Yeah, and we adopted a similar thing. But the challenge that we ran into during COVID was we went full remote. Like probably 2 people were here. I'm guessing you guys probably had a handful of people at your office.
Yeah, we were 85 to 90% in the belly of the beast, working from home.
Right. And so, and you guys are national too, so you guys have employees all over the country. Like, how are you getting engagement from your people when all you can do is interact via Zoom?
Well, one of the things you said, like if you've gone through scaling up, one of the key parts is the huddles. So our morning huddles, we start first. Yeah. We have 14 in our senior executive team.
Right.
We get on every single morning at 8:15.
Every morning.
Every morning. Through COVID, not COVID, every morning. And if he's traveling, he gives his information to one of his other cohorts that are going to be on there. We go word of the day, top 3 things that we're working on that day, anything we're stuck on, and an announcement. We go through that whole thing in 20 minutes, no matter what. Then all of those around the table have their own huddle that they will go through.
You're pulsing that.
Direct reports.
Throughout the
By
entire
10 o'clock,
organization.
it goes through the entire organization, from the secretary at the front desk to my desk and everyone in between. And the important part about that is if somebody's hurting, especially in COVID, somebody's hurting health-wise, financially, emotionally, whatever it is, we're finding that out. I'm stuck. Why are you stuck? Whit's sister has not been feeling well for some period of time. Parents got to come out. We surround that situation and solve it, because the more Whit has to worry about that himself, the less connected he's going to be to the company. And so what has happened is it's just been this giant pinwheel of support and solving one another's problems and concerns and really being there. And let me tell you something, we've gone through some really tough emotional times when you have that many employees. People have stuff that shows up. And I think the emotional thing that COVID has brought to the families has probably been the most overlooked.
Right.
We talk about hospitalizations and people who get COVID, and financially it hasn't been easy for some, but emotionally, I mean, they've had kids at home, they've had, parents that have had to be watched over at home, they've been sick, economics. It's
a lot of folks near psychotic breaks. I mean, you're just constantly being barraged by something.
I think what you would find out if you talk to our people is it's like, you could have lip service and talk about the coin, or you could actually live it out every day. And, we didn't bring these coins because we were talking to you. I could see Whit on the beach hanging out on a Sunday, and if I pull this out of my shorts, he's got his coin. Anywhere you go, any of our employees, 98 out of 100, some might forget it, will have their coin with them.
How do you guys build that level of adoption across a company that big? Because that's something like I'm a forgetful person. I might leave that on my desk somewhere, or you're not always thinking about this, right? Values and living by these values at work, but also in your day-to-day life, right? And so how are you?
Well, you get coined one time and you don't have it, and that'll be enough.
Okay.
So the challenge, Glenn, you want to what that means?
Yeah, the essence of it in special forces is they walked into a bar and you got a bunch of SFs there, and somebody puts a coin down. If any one of those SFs don't have the coin, they buy everybody in the bar a drink.
Okay.
And if everyone has the coin, the person who coined them would have to buy the drink. Now, obviously, HR doesn't want me running around making alcoholics out of everyone, but I think it's really more of an acknowledgement. Like, hey, like I got you, you got me, you got your coin. Hey, we wear the same jersey. And if you don't, I don't have to make you feel bad. You already feel bad that you kind of let the team down.
You establish kind of a vibe about it, a cultural kind of establishment. Like we're going to carry this thing. We're going to commit to carrying this thing.
But it's not a shame thing. Like I'm going to be shamed if I don't have it. It's more of a pride thing that you do have.
Absolutely.
Right? And so when I wake up in the morning and I get my way to work, phone, keys, wallet, coin.
Right.
Like I don't leave
100%.
home without it because
and this is a thing
I feel
at the
empty
top.
without it.
Everyone's doing it.
And listen, some of the gals that don't have pockets, what they did is they got lanyards and they wear the lanyards and they put their coin in the lanyards because, everyone at one time or another has probably been coined, and it's right there on my desk. It's not on your body. Right there on your desk is not like with you. It's got to be part of you because we're together on this. And so that whole esprit de corps thing, I think, just comes through at our level all the way down. If we didn't take it serious, I don't think anybody else would. Right. But
and are you guys talking about this level of fellowship, right? I call this fellowship when it comes to like organizational fellowship and really having that level of camaraderie. But now you've got someone in Florida on a Zoom call. You've never actually physically met this person before, right? Like, are you coining them over Zoom too?
100%. And if somebody isn't going like this, if somebody kind of reaches over like that, come back, Joey. Come back, Joey. Yeah. So like we used to have new hire dinners. We'd all go and everyone had already got their coin and there would be that moment. Right. Now it is by call because people are all over the United States. And listen, it works. What I will tell you is I always invite anyone to come over to our office unannounced, uninvited, and sit in a corner and watch for yourself. Like it isn't like you're an originator and I am and we're against each other. It's like, how do you help that person right there that might be struggling on a call, might be struggling with guidelines, might be struggling in his marketing. Like there is a camaraderie that's different. I'm just telling you, it is different. And listen, like I know like a hot topic in our industry is these non-competes and you can't go here and you can't go there. We don't have a non-compete in our agreement. Now, you can't leave and take employee contacts and stuff, but like if somebody leaves our company, the very first thing I do is I bring our guys together and go, what did we do?
And I wanted to ask about that. So as a company that large, with that many employees, turnover is a natural thing. It happens. And, you guys have been, awarded on, I think it was like an employer website online, like I think it's Glassdoor, something like 4 or 5 stars. But naturally, a company of your size also has people leave, people join, they leave, and that kind of happens. Like what's your process when it comes to someone leaves and they, for whatever reason, it can be an executive, it can be a new hire, lower, new entry. What's your process when it comes to
if you don't mind, I'll take it. I'm very passionate about this one. So I think you treat people as good or better on their way out than you did on their way in. And so what Whit will tell you is like if you're an originator, every single deal that is in the pipeline will be assigned to a manager and you will be paid what you should have been paid on that deal, regardless of how long it takes to close. If you're in operations and you're leaving for some other reason than going to another company, I'll help you find another job. I have contacts. 3.5 decades of contacts. If you're going to a competitor, I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with, and where I can get my hair up, is if you do something that's damaging to the company. You take something from the company. You take employee lists. You like that kind of stuff.
Do the right thing.
Like literally, yeah. And otherwise, no problem. Like listen, we've bumped up. People have left companies and come to us, and people have left us and gone to some of our competitors. I'm like totally good with that. Just treat them the way that you treated them on the way in, plus a little bit, and you would expect the same reciprocation from that person who's going elsewhere. It doesn't always work that way.
Of course. You've
had some, knuckleheads that have done some non-act with honor things on their way out, and so I'll protect our company when it comes to that. But other than that, you won't find anybody. It's never happened. Never happened with me in 35 years to enforce a non-compete. So I'm going to tell you can't go make a living for your family. Like I don't believe in that at all.
And what's interesting is like this whole people-centric concept in management and organizational management. It's been a common thread you see in a lot of companies that have scaled up over the years, and they've taken the Rockefeller habits seriously. But then you also have this kind of like super aggressive kind of Wall Street themed vibe in the space as well, right? And I think it primarily comes from East Coast operations. We see it a lot in New York, and you see a lot of it infused, right, because of the aggressiveness of our space, right? It's becoming very aggressive. What are you guys doing to combat that kind of stuff, right? Because it's so hard, right? It's easy to be aggressive and competitive and hardcore about that kind of stuff, and forget about people, and especially as you're scaling,
I don't think that's in our nature and our culture at all. I think we've built it a little bit differently. I don't think we'll fall into that category because we are people first, right? We want to treat all of our people fairly.
Right. And the people really are defined in a waterfall effect. It's not just your employees, it's your vendors, it's your customers, it's your referral sources, it's your third-party ancillary services. It's really everyone. We were on a call yesterday. One of our top producers said, would you get on a call, meet a potential big investor? We've done some deals, but he's got a whole bunch. And this investor got on, and we did all the niceties and talked about, and asked a lot of questions. Tell me about your business. The guy was just so darn rude.
Yeah.
Like, I can, and this is what, and I expect. And he talked about a relationship he had with another lender that was excellent. Yet here he is with me looking at throwing that relationship away for a tick here or a tick there. And it just, when I hung up the phone, I said, I didn't tell that gentleman that, but I told the account executive, I said, I'm not interested in putting horsepower behind a guy that will leave his lender who's doing a stand-up job over a tick on his fee or his, like, it's just, I'm not in that. And so we're in a position right now where we do get to choose who we do business with. And so when you run up against some of those guys on a competition, I think the consistency, quality, quantity, consistency, just like those that said, hey, they're run by a bank, they're not going to do any loans. I said, you know what? The market will tell everyone whether we're doing loans or not. And I think it's the same way with people. We might not win every deal. There might be some people out there that are so aggressive that they overpowered maybe a soft sell. We have some aggressive people on our staff too, but they treat people with respect.
Right.
I mean, I think
at the end of the day, I think we're gonna be competitive out there, right? We're gonna
Yeah.
aggressively attack the
No
market
slouches.
and nothing like that. But I
you're
think
going to be someone that they want to work with you.
yeah, exactly. I think from an internal kind of cultural perspective, I think we emanate this feeling of just respect that
Right.
we pass on to our partners.
And really, it isn't about rates and fees. I know everyone has to have good rates and fees, but we have almost 20 people in our marketing department. If you were our customer, we'd put our whole marketing team behind you so you could sell your product better, so
Right.
you could market your house better. We have almost 30 people in our IT department. If you want to work on your website, we'll help you with your website. We have relationships with Home Depot and Lowe's that are different than everyone. We pass those discounts out. So it's not just rate and fee. It's like, how do we make you better in all these areas we've invested in? And that way, it's a real, like for me, I don't look for the cheapest. I look for the best relationship, and I'll pay a little more because I appreciate this, you and me. And so I think we take that same approach with our customers now, and so far it's been
And
working.
that's also a common thread on this show. We've most of the folks that we've spoken with that have had success, not just from an origination standpoint, but from scaling their business. It's that, right? It's the idea of like, we might not be the cheapest, but you're gonna really like working with us. You're going to really enjoy working with us, and you're going to stick around, and we're going to be doing millions and millions of deals together.
Yeah.
If you think about cheapest, like let's scale this whole thing back. If you talk about cheapest, you could basically wipe out account executives and wipe out a big portion of, and then whoever gets the cheapest cost of capital, they advertise the most, and you have a fulfillment center. That's not what we're talking about
we're
here.
seeing that.
Well, you're seeing it a little bit,
Yeah,
but like
we're
I don't
seeing
think
it.
we've seen some price wars on the rental stuff. Like some of these guys are out there with rental prices.
It's
when you
getting
look at the
real
securitization,
aggressive.
well, they also have to do it in a way that's sustainable. I know what those deals are trading at on through a securitization and what they're offering the market, and the spread is very, very tight. Even with origination points after incentive comp and all that, there's not a lot of meat on the bone. So I don't know who wants to run a business doing $100 million a month and barely squeaking out a profit. That's not a good business.
Those margins are paper thin. When it comes to
It's
rental.
amazing.
And it's getting more and more aggressive. When it first started, it was at rates that I thought were within reason for rental, right? And then all of a sudden, it could cut in half in a matter of like a year and a half. Who's buying this stuff? And this is a good transition point. I want to talk about market conditions because I've always talked about this, on the panels that I do and on the show and stuff. We've seen a race to the bottom in this space, both on fix and flip, but also we're seeing the same result on DSCR. It's like the level of risk that people are willing to take now. Leverage is going up and up and up. I mean, I'm starting to see advertisements for 90 plus loan of cost.
No one's lived through the financial crisis. I can guarantee
30 years
that.
of experience in the space,
Yeah,
right?
it's like-
and so I want you to kind of like you have 30 years of mortgage experience, and our industry is so interesting because it's still in its infancy. I feel like it's still immensely fractured. You guys have been in the space for 7 years now. We've been in it for roughly 10, 11 now, and it's evolved over the years. Some folks say it's becoming immensely standardized and becoming like the conventional space. I mean, as a person who's seen the conventional space become standardized over the years, because it's remarkable. Even now, I look at it now, and when I was a banker, it's so different. The space looks so different, but I'm starting to see shades of it in our space. We're starting to see, really, really large organizations come in and have, take kind of a UWM approach, and like all they're doing is focusing on securitization, and all they're doing is focusing on price and risk, and just that call center approach. And it's kind of frightening from a person who we started out when the industry was in its crawling out of the ooze.
True private.
It was 100% private. There were no institutional investors. Everything was funded by high net worth investors. And I've been lucky enough to follow the ride and see its evolution. But I don't have 30 years of mortgage experience. Talk about. I mean, it's so different. So
yeah, I think if you don't learn from your mistakes, you're damned to repeat them. And so most of those companies that you're referencing that are in there in the 90s, like that, they've never had a host of loans they've had to take back that could literally cripple a P&L, right? Or their balance sheet. So like we pass on those deals, and that's okay. I don't want to wrestle in that pit. I think we're aggressive. I mean, we go to 80 and 100 on the rehab. I think that's aggressive enough. We have had a year and a half of HPA, so people have benefited from house pricing going up, and it looks like we'll get a little bit more of that. But when that market switches and prices go the other way, those guys that have 90s and people that may not have finished or completed their deals, people will walk.
Right.
There's no PGs on these smaller loan amounts. They're not reporting to credit agencies. It's very, very easy for an LLC to just wipe their hands and say, we live to play another day. And the end owners of that paper will see a side of the business that they will not like.
Right. And that also reminds me of the last crisis in the sense that they're hyper-reliant, especially right now, hyper-reliant on this just boom that we're seeing in value.
And I think that's a huge mistake.
And you've seen it for 30 years now. So
huge mistake.
You know, we've had other people give us their opinion on it. I want to hear yours on that. Like,
well, I think the market is strong right now for a bunch of reasons. 6 million units under served right now. So that's probably a 2 or a 3 year. Rates are still at historic lows. Right. I think there's lots of opportunity in real estate for appreciation over the next 2 to 3 years. Right. I don't think so much over the next 5 to 10 years. I think it does have to correct itself. Like we were driving up here and we saw for about 6 months, 20 to 30 offers, 10% over list price, no contingencies, all cash. Like people had to lay it all on the line to buy. You don't have 10 to 20. You might have 2 to 3 and it might be 5% over list. And
you're right now.
Yeah, right now. Like you're seeing it.
So it is cooling off.
Well, a little bit, but I would say cooling off. Leveling.
Because I live in Orange County and it's still like very popular, right? You still can't buy anything right now. Like you have to
There's a lack of inventory.
That too, but also like it's popular to live. Like people want to live in Orange County. Yeah. It's great, right? And there are pockets of LA that are like that too, right? And we've always have a competitive market, but like I see this phenomenon happen in parts of California that shouldn't be happening. Like in parts of, you know, I couldn't believe when I saw this. I saw this house that was basically a drug house, and they were asking. They got $300,000 over asking price, all cash offer. This house was torn to shit. Like there was literally shit in the toilet. So like
literally when you say,
and they had like pulled all the copper wire out of the wall. Like you think of the worst possible house, it was it, right? And they actually advertised a little slice of hell, and that thing sold for over $300,000 over asking price. And this is recent, right? And so, and a lot of us are telling our clients like this ride is not going to last forever. You have to prepare for it, right?
Absolutely.
And so like. What are you guys doing to install those types of like redundancies and you know using your experience to kind of educate our newer operators in the space to really make sure that they're looking at this from a 20, 30 year perspective?
Well, one of the things we always say is like you could be off on credit, you could be off on experience, you could be off on FICO. Don't be off on value. Get your value right. Don't get emotionally connected to what yesterday was and what tomorrow looks like. What is the real value of that asset? You have to understand that. And you also have to understand very well the timelines and durations of taking an asset back. And I think what makes Civic different, what really made it different early on, is really what your father and Jim did from an NPL standpoint. We had a floor of attorneys. Mm-hmm. And when good people do bad things and a deal goes bad, every single loan we've ever sold would come back to us to have us do the asset management. Why? Because we were experts at it. So it's not emotional. We didn't get mad at you. We just filed what we had to file. And you're going to go bankrupt? We'll be in there. You're going to file divorce? We're going to be in there. You're going to have liens and encumbrances? We're going to be in there. Get the asset back, get it beautified, and get it out.
That's a key component. Be able to manage assets.
You have
Absolutely.
Be able to manage assets. Be able to process a foreclosure. Understand what that looks like, because in the future, those loans may come back to you.
You don't over leverage. Make sure you value the properties correctly and have a backup if it does go wrong.
I think that's very well said. Like if you go 1, 2, 3, that's really what it is. And listen, you got to pay attention to what's going on in the marketplace, right?
That's also a really weak condition. Like that happened in a way. Everyone was like, "Oh yeah." We've interviewed a few people on the show who said that's a bad sign, right? If prices continue to go up for 5 years in a row, that's not a good thing.
But if you recall, and I remember it like it was yesterday, what happened in 08 and 09 wasn't just an interest rate thing. What ended up happening is the Wall Street had such an appetite for loans. It went from conventional to a little bit of non-QM to a more
just dog shit.
So at the very end, even Washington Mutual had a 100% LTV, non-owner or second home to $2 million. And then they put a coffee loan on it, which was a negative AM. And so, and stated. So you have stated non-owner 90 to 100% to 2 million, and people that didn't have solid jobs,
right,
that weren't making real money were stating they make 20 grand a month and qualifying. And so what ends up happening is when they have no skin in the game and prices then pull back, they look and they go, I'm 200 underwater, wipe my hands of that deal.
There was no standard of underwriting.
And then really, if you think about the legal standpoint, there were so many law firms that specialize in keeping people in their homes for $1,000 a month.
I remember that.
So you could never get the asset back. The difference today, at least in our space, is these aren't owner-occupied properties. So we have a lot more rights to that asset than you had before. A lot more rights. You have a lot more skin in the game. So they're either motivated to solve the problem or you have room to solve it yourself.
Right.
And so and then the credit qualifier, let me tell you something, the loans we do today are 10 times better than the loans that were being done in 2008. 10 times better.
Yeah, that is true. The quality of loan and the quality of underwriting, the standardization, the one thing that I feel like our space has benefited from standardization and commoditization is the standard of underwriting that's been installed. Wall Street finally understood what underwriting meant. We're comfortable with this kind of a risk. And now kind of everyone's kind of following suit to that. And some guys are not. And some guys are buying more dog shit than they should. And that's okay. But, but there's still a standard of underwriting. We're not doing like stuff like that we did back in 08.
Right.
But at the same time, there are things that kind of head scratchers. You start seeing massive willingness when it comes to, like, for example, a DSCR loan, right? Like the amount of leverage they're willing to go to, the amount of risk they're willing to take, the amount, like, on the DSCR.
It just doesn't seem like a sustainable business to me. I mean, honestly, if we took this offline and we started talking about some of the firms, you looked at their P&Ls, they're just getting by.
Yeah, and that's the scary part.
It is.
But some of them aren't even here anymore.
That's right.
As a result of the margin calls and everything that happened during COVID.
And that's the fascinating part too, right? Since COVID, there have been kind of new players that jumped in because they missed the boat.
Yeah.
Like 5 years ago, 15, when everything kind of, when Wall Street just like jumped in, right? They missed the boat then, and they jumped in during COVID, and they're doing well now.
Yeah.
But there's also that same kind of level of aggression we're seeing when it comes to risk. And I agree with you. I think that there's less risk to be had on these assets. But I feel like there's still a lot of reliance on this hyper increase in valuation.
I agree. The way I think about it is it's $60 to $70 billion a year space. If we do $2 billion of it, and we're trying to...
That's a really conservative number, actually. 60 to 70 billion?
It gets a little bit bigger if you start throwing some long-term rental builds. I'm talking about fix and flip and bridge and stuff. So when you start thinking about that, and we want to go from $1.7 billion to 2.5 or 3 or 5, you can be picky. Like, you could say no a lot. There's a part of the market for those that want to take the risks, low margin, higher LTV or leverage. There's a part of the market where those 3 or 4 players can play and do fine and take the risk, and that's their business model. That won't be ours.
And so this is a good kind of like segue into, we're running out of time, but I want to have a final segue on, like, well, first thing I want to ask you guys, we always ask this on the show, right now, looking forward for another 2-3 years, bullish, bearish on fix and flip, because this is an interesting time for fix and flip right now.
Bull.
Yeah.
Like bull. I'm very, very bullish on the market. Bullish on real, you said 2 to 3 years? Bullish. Like, I think if you fast track 2 to 3 years, we're a $3 to $4 billion a year firm.
And you qualified at 2 to 3 years, right? So you're predicting a correction in about 3 years.
I'm saying that I'm not smart enough to know past that period. I have enough information right now to know that if all the numbers that I've been reading are accurate, it will take that long to fulfill the housing needs. And listen, there's something else that's going on right now that we didn't talk about is people are leaving the big areas of New York and California, they're going inward.
Mass
they're going
migration.
Listen,
the Great Migration. It's crazy.
Really, like so we have 14% tax in California. People going to Arizona or Vegas or Nashville or the Carolinas, like they're going from 0 to 4%. It's an instant raise, and the cost of living is. I was in Texas 4 days ago. Gas was $2.60. I just drove by there. It was $4.70.
Yeah, it's like $2.60 a gallon. And also, houses are like $500,000, and you're living in a beautiful property.
And why it works is we just proved that through COVID that people can get the job done from home. They can. They can get the job
with the right kind of culture and reminders, right?
Sure. Like our experience has been, it has worked. And like for me, Like if Whit was happier at a different state and he could still bring in the same sort of value add and offerings to Civic that he did, why wouldn't I support him 100% to take his family to a place that was better for him?
Moving to Nashville?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, you actually know me?
He is.
Doing it.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I know literally every week I have a client in Austin. He's like, Kevin, look at this ranch. You can buy it for what you pay for your house. I'm like, you gotta be kidding
I mean,
me.
that's really, without getting personal, that's really his. He found an absolute beautiful home on a beautiful piece of property that he couldn't have gotten this much in Manhattan Beach. It's like
trade a 2-bedroom, 1-bath into a much larger home that we can grow a family in and be happy in for a long time.
That's my thing.
Without putting another dollar.
So I think there's going to, and we've had that. Like we've had leaders go to Texas, we've had leaders go to Nashville, we've had leaders go to Vegas, Arizona, and I think my position is support them, support their family. It's a very unique time, and I also think by allowing that, you can bring some more talent on. Like if you were at a mortgage company that needed you here in Irvine and you wanted to live in Florida and we were open to that, you might consider joining us. So I think there's some opportunity there.
Absolutely. I mean, you're going to see people who want that. I mean, you are seeing people want that flexibility. You know, in our hiring, we're seeing that. They want to have more flexibility. I need to work from home twice a week. I'm kind of used to it. I kind of like it. Some folks insist on it. Some folks say, hey, I live in New York, or I live in Florida. I want to work for you. Are you down? I'm like, absolutely. I don't care.
We spent the last 2 months coming up with a thing called Civic Anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's off the heels of COVID. And so where we are right now, we have about a third of our employees will pass COVID. Like if COVID's cured and it's in the rearview mirror, a third of our employees will work full-time at home. About a third of them will be hybrid, half and half, and a third of them will be in the offices. So, you know, less square footage on the big super offices we have, maybe more offices in the Charleston, Nashville.
That's great because that establishes reach. That establishes a place for you to actually meet.
Yep.
The footprint is nice to have.
And entry into additional markets that I think are really tough to take hold in until you have a physical presence.
You need to be there. And
there's some states where you have to be there.
You have to be there.
Yeah.
Like the Midwest is an underserved market, and you can't get anything done there without being there. Yeah. So it's, and I think South Carolina, the Carolinas as well.
Texas, I think there's a general distrust of people outside of the state.
Yes.
And so
I have a ton of clients in Texas, and they do very well in Texas because of that. And being in the state makes a huge difference. Yeah.
But ultimately, I think that fix and flip product is going to continue. We're bullish on it because people are interested in housing stock elsewhere, right? Yeah. There's more housing markets people are looking at. Right. I think a lot of the people that are first-time home buyers are looking for a turnkey product as well. And so there's not a lot of people that want to take on a big renovation project. Just their first home.
On the investor side, the builder side, they're active still.
And so we are rolling out a ground-up construction product.
Fantastic.
In the very near future as well to help capture that marketplace as well.
Fantastic.
So we're excited about that.
All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. Don't want to go too long. We want to keep you from work. We want to make sure to get you back to work. Thank you once again for coming down to our offices here in Irvine. I know you have a long drive, and I really appreciate it. We'll see you at the next show.
Absolutely.
I know you'll be there.
Captivate.
Hopefully, we'll see you at a show.
Yep, I'm gonna be there.
He's coming.
He's coming.
He's coming.
Right. Well, our audience will finally get to meet Bill at a Jurassic show. Fantastic. And this is all we have for here today. Thank you once again for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
This will be our inaugural episode for season 2 of Lender Lounge. Look out for us at a show and get your hat at the show. All right. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Lender Lounge with Kevin Kim. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. If you did enjoy, please leave us a 5-star review on your podcast platform. And be sure to follow our show to be notified of new episodes. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to smash that like button and hit subscribe for more content from all of us here at Jurassic. Lender Lounge with Kevin Kim is available on all podcast platforms. Referrals really help us spread the word, so please send this over to someone you think might enjoy it. See you next time. This is Kevin Kim, signing off.